We'll get the meeting started in about a minute and a half.
So Steve, if you don't have the room, if you only have that room pointed to that mark room, like you said, I would say you should point it to Keystone Wide again. Because if I'm pointed to Keystone Wide and you're pointed to Keystone Wide, and the two repeaters cover all that area then. Plus,
I'm happy to do whatever you'd like, Dennis.
Well,
let's give it a try, because Vince said he's been calling me on Darby. Of course, if Darby's not pointed, I didn't hear him, because I'm pointed to Paoli on Keystone Wide.
okay, I'll put it on Keystone Wide after this as the return to room.
See, Vince, if the two fusion repeaters are pointed to the same room, that means they're naturally linked. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, yes. It actually is. Anything to get some activity on there, would be great.
Well, I know the guys in Pittsburgh are eager to hear more Pennsylvania participation. But do remember that when you're both pointed at Keystone Wide, that you're also connected to about 7 or 8 other machines across the state.
Yes.
Yeah,
And they're quiet as hell, let me tell you.
everything's pretty quiet. I'm hoping that after this past weekend, HRO had a good deal on FT5s, and I actually ordered one. So I'm hoping that there'll be more activity. Maybe more people will get some fusion radios. Because Dennis did a lot of work in getting, and Steve, you both did a lot of work on getting those repeaters going, and it's a shame for not more people not using them. You know, I'm sure that there's more people in the club that have fusion radios. It was a great presentation last month, and I'm hoping that we get more activity.
Well, I encourage our net controllers to at least once a month ask about fusion radios among our members, and talking about it is part of the way of stirring up attention to it. I move the node all the time to what I think are interesting nets. So anyway, Jeremy wants to get the meeting.
Yeah. All right, let's get this show on the road here. So I want to welcome everyone. This is the May 2023 meeting of the Mid-Atlantic Amateur Radio Club. I'm Jeremy Carlo, N2ZLQ Club President. So as we normally do, we will go around with a round of introductions. So everyone out there, give me a pile up.
Dennis, K3DS here.
Net control. This is K3FCT, Steve, in the Wissahickon Valley section of Northwest Philadelphia.
Andrew, Kilo Alpha 2, Delta Delta Oscar in Berwyn.
Vince in Havertown, Pennsylvania, WA3ADI.
This is Ron and Wayne, KC3ACL.
This is Dick, K3ITH.
Hey, Dick.
Hi, Steve.
Rich,
Bob,
KB3VCL.
N3JIZ in Wayne.
Jim, WJNF, Springfield.
All right, anybody else out there?
Yeah, Karen's here with me, but she's hiding. KC3 ACM.
All right, we'll get her in the log too. All right. So let's see, first up, we normally have a treasurer's report. I don't see Lou out here, so I don't have a financial report. He did send an email. We are currently up to 75 members. I know we do have a few more out there who are waiting to renew. So if you haven't re-upped for 2023, now's a good time to do it. All right, let's go to technical service.
Okay, well,
Technical service.
might as well do the website too. The website for membership has been closed out and updated middle of May with the latest 75 members. And a plea for anybody who's not on the list of, you're obviously not a member currently, but we still want to get your renewal. So check out the membership list on the website. Technical services, I'll just put out the same plea I put out a couple of weeks ago. We went back to Paoli and got 145.13 back on the air. It was a logistical problem, not a technical problem, but I waited long enough that everything was super easy this time. So the 106 and 13 repeaters are back to being relinked. Everybody's having a wonderful time about that. A couple of software changes, which I'm going to send an email to the membership in the next couple of weeks that we might find interesting with our advanced controls. The other plea was 147.36 Darby is sort of in the ICU at the moment because we're not really sure how it's working. Vince just gave me a report that people are using it. I'd love to hear how it sounds and where they're located and all that, because we do have some performance issues. We shut off the 220 repeater based upon some anecdotal statements about the repeater itself generating too much noise and causing interference. So Steve and I did that when we were up there, and I don't think it's a big loss. 444.050 at Darby's working, and so is of course 147.36. So that's the current situation there. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Doing a great job keeping things running. Maybe we can do a test of 147.36 right after the meeting. Maybe those of us who are within range, we can have a little roundtable on it.
I don't think it's as sensitive as it once was, so that's one thing I wanted to try to get. Because I'm pretty far out. If I can key it up and be legible, that would be a good test.
Okay, yeah, maybe we'll have a couple of people after the meeting ends. We'll go out there onto 3.6 and see if we can get that up and running and maybe do a little bit of testing. How does that sound?
That's 3.6, not 0.6.
3-6.
Yeah, it's the Darby repeater.
Oh, the one I can't reach, right?
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have public service. Jim.
Public service. We have a big, fun public service event coming up. The Radnor Memorial Day Parade on the 29th. We are all going to meet at the Micro Center at 8 o'clock. I'll be there a little earlier with donuts, coffee, and what have you. I don't have a lot of signups or commitments, so we really need guys to show up. I have mentioned it on a couple other nets, but you know, we play it by ear. I mean, it's always a crapshoot who's going to be there. So, but I'm looking forward to it. It's supposed to be a nice day. The weather's looking nice, maybe a little warm, but it should be good. Questions, comments?
I'm good for it.
No, I got you, Steve. Yep. Thank you. Well, we have at least Steve and I.
I should be able to make it. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'll know in the next couple of days.
Okay. Well, just remember, get there at 8 o'clock and you're out well before lunchtime. So it's not a large time commitment, but it's a lot of fun. So.
What day is it, Jim?
It's Monday, the 29th. It's on Memorial Day.
What time does the actual parade start as opposed to when we have to report?
9:30 sharp.
It's all done by 11. You're rendezvousing with any of your gear, signage, whatever, down at the farmer's market a few miles down the road by 11:15, and you could be on your way home by 11:15, unless you want to hang out and jaw.
Well, my problem is the opposite end is getting the grandkids woke up in time to get there. Since they'll be visiting this weekend.
Oh, well, they would certainly have a good time because one of the better parades in the area. They have a nice parade, so. That's the upcoming one. The next one is probably going to be September, the George Bender Swim, but getting commitments on the public service this year is a little tough. A few were canceled, some were just non-existent, so it is what it is.
So the Penguin was pushed back to the fall?
October, they didn't give it a date, but they said in the October range. I was able to contact them. She was really nice, the person I talked to. She apologized for pushing it back, but everybody wanted to push it back. So I just hope it doesn't push into the Vietnam veterans, which would be, maybe November if it's going to happen.
Well, that's usually Veterans Day, give or take a little bit. But the
Right.
Radnor run is usually October. Right. Or is that November? I forgot which.
Well, there's going to be a few pretty tight in that area. So
Yeah.
we'll have more info as it gets closer. So.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Yes, if anyone wants to get involved with the Memorial Day parade, should they contact you?
They can certainly contact me, and Dennis has it on the website, my phone number, or just show up. I mean, even if you're not sure today and you wake up Memorial Day and say, hey, I can spend a few hours. I mean, just show up. It's the Micro Center parking lot.
All right. Thanks, Jim. So how about Field Day?
Field Day is the 24th and 25th of June, which is fast approaching. Most of you know, or at least some of you know, that unfortunately I will not be available. So I'm looking for somebody to kind of take the reins. Not that all of us, if we took a little piece of that, we pretty much know what to do. Because I'm going to be on vacation. The family vacation was out of my hands planned. So that's where it'll be. But if anybody wants to pitch in a little bit, or, it's not a whole lot of work. I mean, everything's pretty much set up. The equipment's at Brian's. We just have to get that transported up there. Normally we transport it up on the Friday. Lou meets us there. We put it in the garage there. And after that, it's pretty simple. Obviously, we're going to have the Boy Scouts. So if anybody's involved in Boy Scouts that can help out with that, that would be appreciated too. Oh, good. Thank you, Ron. So that's always a good thing because I'm heavily involved in Boy Scouts also. So I always look forward to us doing that. That's pretty much it. We'll start really knocking on it after this parade. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, is there any interest among attendees in kind of taking the reins for Field Day? Anyone out there?
I was going to say that, Jeremy, but nobody was jumping up and down.
Yeah. The last person to say no gets.
I think even if we don't find somebody to kind of take charge, we've all done it enough that, we can all pitch in a tiny bit. And I don't see Brian here tonight. He's going to be involved with Scouts and everything too. So I did talk to Brian, so he might pitch in a little bit.
Jeremy, let me ask a question on the Scouts. Is there a sign-up sheet, or do we have a limit as to how many can show up?
Not yet. As far as the limit, we're going to have to think carefully because we have done up to 24 in the past, but we were bursting at the seams. I'm thinking like a dozen might be a better number.
Okay. Well, the reason why I ask is I'm going to Devon 50's troop meeting tomorrow night to finish up a personal fitness MERP badge with a Scout. And I mean, if we're looking for Scouts, I could certainly mention it. If it's better to keep my mouth shut, I could keep my mouth shut, but I'll probably discuss it with a few of the Scouts, but not stand up and make a major announcement.
All right. Yeah, you can mention it and have them contact me. We
Great.
still have to get the announcement out in the Trailblazer, but I can start making up a list.
Okay,
if
thanks.
people
Got it.
register. Yeah, I'll copy you on the announcement. I'll
Thank-
send it out.
Thank you.
But yeah, Chester County sends out their announcements every 2 weeks or so, but I'll have the preliminary ready for you. All right, anything else on field day? So we should have a monthly meeting, maybe the week before field day, something, whatever the Tuesday is before that, is that the 20th or 21st? Maybe we'll have a Zoom meeting on that night, and that'll be good for any last minute preparations.
Yeah,
All right,
it's good.
how about Hamfest, Bob?
Okay, it looks like we're getting things together. We got the Hamfest flyers all printed up. We've taken Hamfest flyers to Warminster, and thanks to Dennis for passing some out, and at Warminster, and then I was able to get to the Kutztown Hamfest or Antique Radio Fest or whatever it's called, the Delaware Valley Antique Radio Association's Hamfest. I was distributed some Hamfest flyers there. Looks like this weekend we've got the Bergen County Amateur Radio Club's Hamfest up in Bergen County. So I'm not sure if I can make that one, but if anybody else is going to be heading up there, I can definitely give you a supply of Hamfest flyers and to pass out up there. Then the next Hamfests after that, we got Harrisburg and Murgas and Lime Ridge, and there's the computer show or computer festival down in New Jersey, I guess, and there's a couple others coming up, and of course the Sussex Hamfest in I guess it's July, about the second week of July. So we need to get Hamfest flyers out to them. We're still working on final touches on the sound system upgrades that we can present to the fire company, and hopefully we can have them knock a little bit of money off of what they charge us, and then we'll get the contract together and get all that end moving, and I guess that's pretty much where everything stands right now. I kind of have had a bit of an interruption in the flow of things, but we'll hopefully get things together again this year. So,
Philmont's last monthly meeting before September is June 14th. If you get me, Hamfest flyers, Philmont's pre-field day meeting will probably have somewhere between 30 and 40 hams there. So, get me 50 flyers and I'll pass them around.
okay. All righty.
Because that's the last time Philmont people will all be together in one place.
Okay, that'd be great.
And actually, if you give me more, I'll pass them around at field day.
Okay.
Yeah, likewise, Bob, if you can get me about 20 flyers, I'll pass them out at the Montgomery County Aries Races meetings in June and July.
All righty. And let's see. So So I guess that's, that'll be great if you get flyers out to the club meetings. That'd be great. And I guess I think Marple Newtown is also having a club meeting coming up pretty soon, so we'll try to get some flyers out to that club. So okay, well, that's I guess that's about it for Hamfest.
All right, thanks, Bob. Let's see. Next up on my list. How
If
about,
I can,
oh yeah, Rich, go ahead.
on the fundraising, we got 121 emails out to different companies. I've had about a half a dozen responses so far. I think most of them are out of Dayton right now, but Anderson Company, along with some crap, sent us a case of the little project boxes worth $1,300. BioAny Power sent us a half a dozen batteries and chargers worth $1,154. Comet sent an antenna and some beer steins. It's worth $55. So with the crap and the good stuff, we've got $3,114 worth of merchandise so far. And that's only 6 responses. So it's getting there.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Yeah, Rich really goes above and beyond with the fundraising, and I think we have probably the best door prizes around of any Hamfest, maybe other than Dayton, because they get all the big vendors there. But yeah, you're really doing a great job.
Well,
Yeah, great.
the bigger the vendor, the smaller the donation. Flex Radio sent us 10 hats, 20 stickers, and 11 t-shirts for about $300 worth of material. So
It's still a donation. It's something
Yeah.
that we can
it's
give.
it's
So
still a donation. They'll get mentioned.
everything is appreciated.
Can I make a quick
Right.
comment,
You gotta
Jeremy?
remember, it's the thought that
Yeah.
counts.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
I went to the Warminster Hamfest and I was there a couple hours. I came home and a couple days later in the mail, I won a prize. It was a repeater book, but they mailed them to us. Ours, you have to be there. So I thought that was interesting. I've never seen that before. That's all.
All right. How about VE sessions? Dick, did you want to give an update?
Sure, we had one the first Saturday in May. I would have to look at the calendar to see what that date was, but we had one candidate. He was under 18. We had 4 VEs, and let's see, actually the candidate was 13 years old, taking his technician test. And I told him I could easily relate to that. I was 13 when I got my first ham license. Took the test for it and passed. So, and he did pass. He got his technician license. So we hope to see him back. Told him about the Hamfest. In fact, I even sent him a flyer afterwards. So maybe we'll catch him there for an upgrade.
All right, that's excellent news.
And the
Maybe we
next,
can get him to come out to field day too.
correct, the next VE test session is at field day, starting at 10 o'clock.
You mean at
Registration is
Hamfest?
required.
I mean at the Hamfest. All right.
Yeah, at the
We're not
Hamfest.
doing-
That's-
Yeah.
I knew it was one of those things.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, if we can get him to come out to field day, that would be great to see some on-air operating.
Yeah, he
And if he's a scout, he could do the merit badge too.
wouldn't surprise me if he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I'll pop him an email.
All right, thanks. That's great news. We're always looking to get young people involved. All right, let's see, breakfasts. We do have a breakfast coming up this Saturday, May 27th, and that's at Andy's Diner, which is on Ridge Pike in Conshohocken. It's right off, I think it's exit 18 on the Blue Route. So we're looking forward to that. That'll be this Saturday, and that'll be a nice lead in for Monday for the Memorial Day Parade. So let's see, Nets. Nets have been pretty active. I haven't been on a couple of the recent ones since I've been out of town dealing with
Jeremy?
family issue.
Jeremy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
let me turn my camera back on. I've been looking at the net sign-up sheet, and it's basically very bare. It's like a great desert. I've been trying to fill in as net control. And I know that Bob filled in one night as net control when I wasn't around. So I think we got to try to promote, trying to get some more net control operators and not have the nets fall flat on their face. I even know, for example, on the net tomorrow, I don't think there's anybody listed, at least when I looked the last time.
I'll probably take it because I'm back in town now. So
Well, sign up so that at least everybody knows, you know, at least it's.
Right.
Okay.
I'll do that. Yeah, I've just been out of town most of the last couple of weeks dealing with some issues. So now I'm back. Everything's settled out. All right. Anything else for the good of the club? Any other events? Any other committees?
Something.
Anything?
We had mentioned once upon a time that there's an external group that wanted to archive our remarks, the ones that we had produced and I had on the website. So if you look on the website, you'll find that there's a link to this particular group that archives all of these things. They have a couple of different things that they're archiving, but they are archiving amateur radio publications, and it's quite a nice nice system because you can search and you can find your name in the past remarks and all that. And just check the website and you'll see the link to this external site that's actually now archiving our old paper remarks.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
That's another consequence of ARDC selling a quarter of their net 44 allocation for 124 million and making a grant among many other grants to the archiving group. I forget their name, but they are accepting old magazines, they're accepting old books, they're accepting all kinds of stuff. But it's ARDC. And
They have a real, they must have thought this name up really hard. Their name of the group is archive.org.
But they got funded by ARDC to do the amateur radio collection.
All right. Thanks. So anything else for the business meeting? Any other announcements?
WQ3Z.
Hey, there's Ned.
Sorry I'm late. Did we talk about breakfast on Q on Saturday?
I briefly mentioned the breakfast, but maybe you can give a plug.
Okay, long story short, remember, Andy's on outside of Conshohocken. If you have never been to a MARC Eyeball QSO breakfast, and if you participate in talk-in on the way in, I'm buying breakfast.
All right. Thanks, Ned. So there you go. There's the offer. They say there's no such thing as a free lunch, but they never said anything about a free breakfast. So you can test that out.
What
All right,
time
so I
is
think
that,
we're-
Jeremy,
What's that?
what time?
What time? Oh,
Is the
9
breakfast?
a.m. 9 a.m. Okay. So with the business meeting completed, we'll move on to our invited presentation for this evening. So we're very glad to have Andrew, KA2DDO, a longtime MARC member, and he'll be telling us about APRS. So Andrew, you want to take it away?
Greetings, everybody. Just out of curiosity, how many people were there the last time I talked about it? Good. So I got a new audience. Excellent. So I'm basically doing this basic simple. What is APRS and how does it work and what is it good for? Next slide, please.
Sure.
Okay. The automated packet reporting system, not position reporting system, but packet reporting system, because you can do more things with APRS than just send vehicle positions. It's a deliberately multicast digital packet radio protocol, deliberately one-to-many stations so that everybody can hear what's going on. It is lossy because you don't have acknowledgements of the packets, but because they are resent redundantly, generally the loss is not a big deal. It's a simple ASCII format, so it's easy for small computers or even human beings to read. So it's basically a way for everybody in the area to share information, small bits of information with everybody. Next. Original APRS, they built with people were recycling old Bell 202 modems for this. Of course, now we're using much better technology, but back then it was real Bell modems. So it's 1200 baud packet. An important thing about APRS is it's carrier sense multiple access. Each station is supposed to listen that the channel is clear before it fills up the channel with somebody else. And there's a bit of randomizing in the protocol spec to reduce the chance of collisions. It's using a standard AX.25 packet with HDLC. All packets still have the senders is the ID of the station call sign sending the packet, plus an optional SSID, so that one operator can have up to 16 possible stations running at the same time, numbered 0 through 15. Because you're not sending to one other station, it's not point to point, but point to multiple points, the destination address is not the destination call sign, but it usually identifies what type of station the sender is using, so you get more telemetry information about it. And there's a protocol document at the original APRS.org website and also on the TAPR website, the Tucson Amateur Packet Radio Corporation website, which describes all the gory details of APRS. APRS.org also lists the revisions for APRS versions 1.1 and 1.2. And next slide. So what can you do with APRS? Obviously, everyone knows you can position report where a mobile station is located. But you also can use it to report weather information. And the National Weather Service is very happy about that because they're collecting that information from all across the country, and a lot of it's coming over APRS. You can do remote station telemetry with it, and you're also capable of doing two-way text messaging with it. It's not just sending out packets and hoping someone's going to hear it. You can actually get replies. Next slide, please. Okay. It was originally invented way back in 1984 by, unfortunately now the silent key, Bob Berninga at the U.S. Naval Academy. And so the midshipmen were using it to track vessels on the water. And of course, for those who watch the Army-Navy game, for years it was also used to track sending the football up for the Naval Academy up to where the game was being played. So you knew if the football was going to get there on time. Current version of APRS, it was established in the late 1990s and it's had minor changes since, mostly adding new little features on the edges. Next slide. What equipment can do APRS? Any radio that's got a built-in TNC can obviously do APRS. There's also dedicated APRS only radios, but you can do it with any radio to which you can hook up an external TNC and a computer to, either a hardware TNC like the Bionics Tiny Tracks, and forgot who makes the Open Tracker, and then or much better performing software TNCs now, such as AGWPE and Direwolf and Sound Modem, which can use modern digital signal processing to actually do a much better job of pulling signals out of the noise than the old hardware TNCs could handle. Next slide. Oh, by the way, if anyone has a question, feel free to chime in. Now, because we're normally using VHF for this, the national channel is 144.390 in the 2-meter band. You got a limited range because it's line of sight. However, you can use digipeaters just like you could for connected mode packet to forward your packets to get more range. Next slide. And if that's not good enough, you can get around the world using the APRS IS internet backbone with iGate stations, which basically have an APRS radio station with a connection back to this internet service called APRS IS. And where there are iGates that are called transmit iGates, you can even send a message to somebody to radio on the other side of the world. Next slide. But as I said, an iGate is basically an APRS station that has both a radio and an internet connection. The backbone network is run by ham radio operators, is a multinational network run by ham radio operators around the entire world. There's the core backbone and then regional servers to share the load scattered around in 5 parts of the world: North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia, New Zealand, and Oceania. Just like any other APRS station, the iGates are identified by their call signs. Next. So big things, every signal iGate hears gets sent to the internet. To keep people who are listening to the internet from getting flooded, the backbone automatically filters out all but the first copy of any given packet that comes into the system. So that way you can, it's safe to have redundant iGates because it gives you redundant coverage in case there's a failure. Transmitting is a little more specific because there's a lot more bandwidth on the internet than there is on a 1200 baud packet channel. So iGates only forward internet packets back to RF if either it's a message that was specifically addressed to an RF station that iGate had heard on RF, saying, oh, I heard this guy, so I can send packets back to him. Or it's a position report from the guy sending a case, the first use case message. The next time he sends a position report, we'll forward that on so the recipient of the first message will know where the guy is who's talking to him. And then there are special cases where you can force an iGate to send other types of messages to the local RF channel, but this is kind of discouraged because, again, due to the limited amount of bandwidth of 1200 baud, and we'll talk about that a little later. Next slide. So again, what can we do with APRS? The obvious thing that everybody thinks of, let's track mobile stations. Well, we also have weather stations, text messages I mentioned, bulletins, which are a special case of text messaging, and what goes into what Bob Berninga called the local info initiative, a way to periodically broadcast to everybody who happens to be driving into your area what's available, like what are good repeaters, is there a ham fest in the area, things like that, and they can see it on their APRS radio as they're driving around. QRU, which lets you know what, if someone's not explicitly broadcasting local information, you can send out a message saying, what is available around here? What 2-meter repeaters can I find? Because I can't find my copy of the repeater book. Or various other services. If you need a hospital or a fire station or something else, QRU can help you find it. There are a bunch of other services provided on the internet backbone for people to talk about a bit. And of course, the ability to send telemetry messages from isolated stations back to where it's convenient to get to them, especially really isolated stations such as space satellites. Okay, next slide, please. A sample of some weather data from a while ago, and you can see it looks like a bunch of long string of numbers. That's because it is a long string of numbers. You can see right at, let's look at the second line, right after the W underscore. You'll see there's the direction the wind's coming from, how fast it's blowing, how fast it's gusting to, what the temperature is, how much rain we've had in the last hour, since midnight, and over the last 24 hours, what the current humidity is, what the barometric pressure is, and what type of weather station's reporting all this stuff. So, and the National Weather Service really appreciates this information, and they are tapped into the APRS-IS as a receive-only station, collecting all this stuff and using it. So they appreciate getting all this microclimate ground truth data to supplement what they get from the their stations at airports and the like to get them much better ability to predict accurate weather. Next. Here's an example of the weather that Chester County Department of Emergency Services is collecting with the Chester County Aries Races Group deploying weather stations around the county. This is their GIS system that is taking a feed from a CCAR iGate so they can display the current weather stations. This is a little old pictures, it's not current data, but so people are interested in our weather data. Next slide, please. Text messaging. You can actually send a text message without using a cell phone. You can send it. Basically, you say who's the recipient, their call sign and SSID, what the message is, and an optional sequence number, which allows them to say, yes, I got your message. So you don't have to keep retransmitting it until they finally say, stop sending it already. I've got it. Next. Here's a sample text message. You see it was sent by any one Charlie Uniform -9 to AB1 JC-9 and just said, wow. And it was the 30-second message that any one CU had sent. Now, this is not actually what it looks like on the wire. This is a APRS program on a PC that's displaying it in a neatly formatted format rather than the format you saw in the previous slide, which is what the message actually looks like. Next slide. Bulletins are a special case of message where you're not sending it to a specific recipient, you're sending it to the pseudo recipient, BLN for bulletin, and then the line number, and then which group of messages. There are stations in various places in the country that will send about a 5-line bulletin, and because you can sort it by the line number, you can see there, instead of getting one line of 68 characters, you can get 5 or 50 lines of 68 characters per line and update it periodically by sending a new update to that particular line number packet. So it makes a very easy display, almost like, like the displays they show in the airport, but they can display anything that can be sent in a text message. Next. So we talked about the local information initiative. Here's an example of someone looking at their Kenwood D72 radio, being told there's a net coming up on repeater 147.105 positive offset. And then on the screen on the right, you'll see someone's looking on their screen and someone's got the location of their Hamfest. So you don't have to figure out where is this Hamfest? It's right there on the map because they're announcing where they are. And Bob Berning had talked about that on his website and his local information page. Next. QRU, that's a special service that was set up where RF stations will listen to a text message sent to the alias QRU, and then the body of the message is what category of information do you want? And then any station that is set up to respond to QRUs, if they have information of the requested type, they'll send it back out. So it can show up on the map like that Hamfest entry we saw earlier. So common requests are, where's a ham radio club? Where's a fire station? What 2-meter analog repeaters are around? Or D-Star or a couple other modes. Or just what QRU is known in the area. You can just send the info message and the local station support QRU will tell you what categories they have information about. Is there a question? Okay, next slide. Okay, services. There are many services running on the APRSIS internet backbone that you can send a text message to them and they'll bounce back with an appropriate answer. There's the recipient who is, you send them a call sign and they'll send back what they know about that call sign, say pulling from the FCC or Radio Amateurs of Canada databases. The email to gateway that will send a 1-line email through the regular email system. Used to be a way to send text messages to a cell phone that way, but it got shut down due to regulatory issues, alas. The answer server allows you to announce that you want to be a member of some group like, Field Day or whatever. In fact, these days, someone has organized an APRS Thursday where people around the world are joining hams on the, I'm not sure what HOTG is supposed to stand for, but that's the AND server group that they tell you to sign up for. And they've gotten over 400 hams checking in over APRS every Thursday night. And someone has created a weather bot that will take your last heard position and based on your call sign and send back the weather forecast for your location. Next. Okay, telemetry. There's a standard telemetry message that allows you to send 5 analog values and 8 binary bits back in one message. So you can send quite a bit of information back about your station. Here's an example of one station, W4VA-10, sending telemetry. So you see the upper part shows you the raw packets, and then the lower thing shows the formatted where it's taking all those extra messages that describe how to interpret the data and display it in a prettier format. Like, for example, showing that the temperature is such and such a temperature in Fahrenheit, or what the humidity is, or what the RSSI of their backhaul on their cellular backhaul from their remote site, assuming they're using that. Next slide. Okay, so here's all this cool stuff, but why doesn't it work for me? There's lots of reasons that APRS may not work for you, and a lot of it has to do with common issues of digital radio operations. One, distorted signal. If it's distorted, the receivers won't be able to understand it. And in digital radio, it's all or nothing. You either get the whole packet intact or the whole thing gets thrown away, even if it's only got 1 bit error. So you need to have a clean signal. Certainly, if you're weak, since there's no error correction, you may lose the signal because just noise on top of it. There may be collisions. 2 people transmit at the same time and all you get is noise. You may have your radio set up incorrectly. You may actually be talking too far. We'll talk about the Aloha circle, which says what is a good range for APRS that you won't be jamming other people. And not just people transmitting too often, so there's not room for you to get a word in edgewise. Let's go over these in detail. So how you can fix them to make your APRS work better. Next slide. Okay, since we're just doing basic FSK, they should be at the same amplitude. Of course, everybody's radio that's made for voice assumes, oh, we're going to do, because it's FM voice, we're going to do pre-emphasis and de-emphasis, and that's going to skew the amplitudes. That's why it's preferred to use the data port if your radio has a data port where it bypasses the pre-emphasis and de-emphasis circuits. Also, you don't want to make a loud signal because the limiter on your radio will distort the audio. That's the whole purpose of a limiter, is to be nonlinear and squish the amplitude down. So you don't want your modulation to be so strong that your limiter, your audio limiter is cutting in. Next slide. Hidden transmitter. You have a big hill in the middle, like where station B is in this picture. And then A and C are both trying to talk at the same time. B just hears noise because A can't tell that C was trying to transmit at the time, so A just goes ahead and transmits, and the same thing with C. So it's a problem when you have transmitters that can't hear other transmitters, so the carrier sense multiple access algorithm doesn't work because you can't hear them. It's not like Ethernet cables where everybody could be heard because they're all plugged into the old fat orange coax back in the old days. With radio, it's a lot different. Next slide. The Aloha circle. This was actually figured out when they created the Aloha net in Hawaii back in the, probably it was the 70s or 80s. But basically, there's only so much you can get on the channel because of your channel bandwidth. We're running a 1200 baud. So a typical APRS packet with all the headers, preamble that's going out to get your modem synchronized, and then the checksum at the end. It takes about a second to send one packet. So figure you've only got 1,800 seconds in a 30-minute cycle. So that's not a whole lot of packets you can jam in half an hour at 1,200 baud. And we'll say why it's less than 50% loading you can put on the channel in a little bit. So that works out to about 900 packets in a half an hour. And the reason we talk about half an hour is they've found experimentally for APRS having a half-hour beacon of data that's not changing often is good to say your station's still alive, but you're not wasting bandwidth announcing, well, I'm still a fixed station at one at one place. So it's not like I really need to update you. It's not like a mobile station where you would want more frequent updates. So basically, when you work out that you only can do 900 packets in half an hour, that works out to only about 60 to 100 nearest stations that you can get on the channel at one time. So the Aloha circle is a calculation of the radius to the station that going away from you, going out until you get enough stations to fill up the channel. There's no capacity left. And if you're transmitting with a big enough antenna, high enough antenna, and enough power to get beyond the Aloha circle, you're just jamming people out beyond the circle because now they can't get a word in edgewise in their area. Next slide. Yeah, so whoop, did you skip a slide? Go back one slide. Oh yeah, here we are. Yeah, if you try no, back the previous slide. You went too far. Yeah, here's the text. Yeah. So if you try and jam more traffic when the channel's full, you're going to get less traffic rather than more. Because you're going to have collisions, which basically you didn't get either packet. They're both wiped out. If you have too many digipeaters, it also makes things worse because every time a station digipeats, that's another copy of the packet coming in the same local area. Now, admittedly, the digipeaters area is bigger than you down in the valley with a walkie-talkie, but it's still another copy filling up bandwidth. The cell phone networks figured this out a long time ago, that they can increase capacity with limited frequencies by shrinking their cells. So they reduce the power, lower the antennas on the towers, so the cell gets smaller, therefore they can reuse the frequency at a closer tower. And they're reducing their Aloha circle to keep the capacity of the base station to less than fully saturated. And so the same thing applies to APRS. So if your Aloha circle is too big, you don't need such a high antenna, believe it or not. It's nice, you want it high enough, but not too high. And the same in your transmit power. An alternative, if you don't want to hear everybody, but you only want to hear certain people you're working with, is don't use the national frequency, use a different frequency. For example, the multiple sclerosis city to shore bike ride uses a non-standard frequency for their APRS, so they don't miss all their support vehicles because of other people working on the same channel. It's only their people. So they can have much faster update rates without running out of bandwidth. Next slide. Just an example of how busy APRS is around here. This is a picture I took of the traffic based on the location of the Chester County Aries Races main I-gate at the Chester County Government Services Center. And you notice the orange circle is the Aloha circle for that station. And it doesn't even make it to the end of Chester County, which is why they have I-gates down in southwestern Chester County and northern Chester County that use the internet to bring data back from the weather stations out of the extreme, like the one you can see right at the top of the map next to the Schuylkill River. But that's as much as they can jam in because of the sheer amount of traffic from all those stations. Next slide. So what other things that people don't know APRS? The high altitude ballooning people love APRS because, again, it's designed for telemetry and position reporting. It's perfect for their needs. And other remote stations, like you say, you have a repeater up on a hill where there's no internet service. you can send a report on your backup battery and whatnot via APRS from there and pick it up wireless. And of course, the obvious thing of mobile station tracking, which gets used in a lot of different environments. Like the public service events that we all know about, is the obvious ones, but they're even using it at places like the big Burning Man event out in Nevada. They use it to track their emergency medical service people out there. And a lot of wilderness search and rescue teams use it so they can keep track of all their searchers. Next slide. Because APRS is such an old, simple protocol, you don't need a big high-end computer to run it. You can use like an Arduino and create and still be able to participate in APRS, which also means you can save on your power. Next slide. And APRS, the concept of APRS of transmitting local status from multiple stations and everyone seeing all of their fellow stations consistently in one view. A lot of other people like that. What the Federal Emergency Management Administration calls situational awareness with common operating picture. And a lot of other services have copied that, such as the automated information system for boats, so they know where all the ships are, ADS-B for airplanes, and the team awareness kit used by the US military and other government agencies, which basically gives them the same sort of thing, but built to government specs instead of amateur specs. Next slide. Although APRS has been around a long time, it is still evolving. People are using it on other radio protocols. People are playing with LoRa, which is a short range mesh network, but APRS works over that because you have more bandwidth to play with, so you can afford to have a dense mesh. They've also redesigned the AX25 radio protocol, the FX25, which does forward error correction to improve your reliability. And they've come up with new protocols on top of the radio level to carry more information, although because APRS is so simple, everyone seems to be sticking to the original APRS ASCII text protocol. Next slide. Any questions, anybody?
There we go.
Question, Andrew.
Ready? Any questions?
Actually, I wanted to make a plug for Andrew. He's much too modest. Andrew is the author of a client for APRS called YACC. Yet another what is it? Yet
another APRS client.
And he really has a very good reputation, and we're very happy to have him as a club member in MARC, that's for sure. Now, Andrew, I'm running a time wave PK96 with UI view 32 up at K3TU. Am I behind the curve?
As long as it still works. Remember, again, you don't have to get around the world with this, although there actually is APRS on HF at a painfully slow 300 baud.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment about the lower circle and interference. I lowered the power of the Kenwood transceiver. It's up here to 5 watts. But even with that, with the big antenna on top of the 10-story building, we have a pretty good footprint.
Yeah, I remember one guy was complaining that he was having trouble getting all the way down to Washington, D.C. from around here. He couldn't punch through because there were too many people on the channel. And if he had enough power that he could hear Washington, D.C. stations, he had much too good of an antenna. If he'd hear them direct.
So, and Andrew, a practical question from this fella, K3FZT, who's been putting his toe in the APRS water. And in the setup, there is a Y2, 1, all these numbers about how far it's distributed, as I understand it. Is that accurate? And as Joe Ordinary with maybe 5 watts in my car, maybe 1 watt in my backpack, how should I be setting my APRS device?
Well, there's a standard settings. You may have heard of something called smart beaconing. And that's a protocol they came up with for mobile and portable stations, so that the faster they move or the more they change direction, the more often they beacon. But if they're maintaining a steady course or slowing down, then they beacon less often so as to not clog the channel. So that's an automatic thing for adjusting your beaconing rate.
Yeah, but that's the rate of beaconing. There's also something about I don't remember what it's called, but there's a field that you put 2,1 or
the digipeater aliases, right? Okay, back in the days of original connected mode packets, it was possible to get to a station that you couldn't directly talk to by relaying through a digipeater. And in those days, you wanted to use a specific digipeater, so you actually use that digipeating station's call sign, so your packet would only get routed in the right direction. Because APRS is multicast to everybody in your vicinity, you use what they call an alias that any station in the area that's functioning as a digipeater will accept.
Can go for a walk in a minute.
And so, for example, a national standard that works pretty much everywhere in the world is the wide number, which says like wide 2-2 says go through any wide area digipeater, but only 2 extra hops. And the last number will count down until it reaches 0. It says, okay, I've used up my hop count. Stop sending this on. So that's maybe what you're thinking of is the wide 2-2 or wide 1-1 suffix.
yes, exactly. And what ought I do if I'm cruising around town out on field day and want to send QRU information? How as just Joe Average, how should I choose to set that?
Well, your normal beacons, basically how far do you need them to be heard? For example, if you're driving around for, like, say, the public safety event, I'm going to do a little plug here myself for the upcoming French Creek Iron Tour, for which I am the APRS manager. And so we need to use wide 2-2 digipeating because there are so many hills in western Chester County that we can't get back to net control without going through at least 1 and possibly 2 digipeaters.
Okay.
But if you don't need to, for a QRU request, you shouldn't specify any aliases because you want to find out what's in your immediate area, not what's at the other end of the state.
Okay.
Because, like, who cares? Like, especially you don't want to do QRU over the internet because, like, do you really care if there's a 2-meter station in London, England, or Sydney, Australia? Is that really going to help you any?
No. Okay. I get it. Can I ask Dennis a question? Sorry, is K3TU a digipeater or an iGate?
No, it acts as a very good digipeater though. That's its primary purpose. It's very popular with people trying to come from the western counties, say down to the shore as a result. And that's what I'm happy about.
So it's a digipeater.
Yeah, digipeater, yes.
Okay.
It's working because I was in Plymouth meeting today and I saw it come up on my screen.
Thank you. You can go to the K3TU website and you'll see the picture of the Kenwood transceiver and the venerable time wave PK96, which can actually do 9,600 bits per second. on the standard channels, but you have to have a data port, as Andrew was saying. In others, can't just
And-
plug into the mic port.
And the other problem is you may be able to do 9600 baud, but it really doesn't gain you anything. The author of the Direwolf software TNC wrote a very nice paper on why 9600 baud isn't really faster. And because of waiting for clear channel and collisions and packet overhead, when you're only sending one packet and then waiting a while, you really don't gain anything from 9600 baud because you still can't jam in more stations.
That's the normal early situation.
Yeah. Now, 9600 baud works if you're doing connected mode file transfers where you're going to be sending a whole bunch of packets back to back one after another. Because then you're not wasting time with spinning up your radio and spinning it down.
Long before APRS was there. In fact, this club has experience in it. The same protocol, if you will, AX.25, et cetera, that was used for packet bulletin boards. And MARC actually had a packet bulletin board for many years, probably from about 1982 to about 1994 or so. And it was located at Paoli Hospital as a standalone packet bulletin board systems. And we would all get on and do file transfers and send email and all that. You have to realize this is like prior to the internet. So yet the internet killed it. So that's another example, went down the tubes.
Although oddly enough, bulletin boards are coming back.
And the 9600 bits per second worked great, as you were just saying, when you did an FTP file transfer with a packet bulletin board. It was great.
Can you set your COM port setting to 9600 and your APRS setting to 1200? Or
And that's actually recommended. And the reason why is because the typical protocol that goes between your computer and the TNC, assume you're using a hardware TNC, it's typically using a protocol called KISS, which may put extra bytes in. It has to put extra bytes in for framing, and may have to do bytes for escaping because you're sending a byte that's one of the KISS protocol byte codes. So it's actually a bigger packet when you count the total number of bits going over the RS-232 cable than there is going over the radio. So you might actually want to do faster, but again, you only want to send one packet and then wait for a while. So you don't overflow your TNC, because some of those old hardware TNCs can't handle getting like 50 packets shoved into them at one time.
Dick, do you remember Tom Stewart, K3TS, back in the day?
Oh, yeah, clearly. He wasn't related to me, but yes, I remember.
Before Tapper had AX.25, there was another protocol. I don't know if Andrew knows this, but I'm a lot older than you are, Andrew. It was called the Vedic protocol, came out of Vancouver. And I had a Vedic protocol TNC, and Dick Stewart and I would talk to each other. We were about the only ones on the air. Tried 1978.
Mhm.
Boy, you're clearing up a lot of cobwebs in my head, Dennis.
Yeah, well, I had a long call back then, so I had to like introduce myself. So, well, we want to thank Andrew for a good presentation. As I said, if you're interested in a little bit more about Andrew, take a look at do a Google search on YAAC APRS client, and you'll come up with his page and all that. We certainly thank him for his contributions.
Here's a question. If someone were getting started in APRS, what would be kind of the easiest way to get into it? If, let's say, you had like a mobile rig or an HT available.
Well, if you want to do it fully mobile or portable, you probably want to get one of those HTs that actually has APRS built in, so you don't have dozens of dangling pieces of equipment with wires all over the place. That's one of the big problems with APRS originally, was the wires and computers everywhere. Now that you got, like, for example, the Kenwood D72 that's got an APRS TNC in it and enough smarts to display packets on the little LCD screen of the radio, and certainly some of the mobile radios like the Kenwood D710 and the Yaesu FTM 350 and so forth, that makes it a lot easier to use mobile if you need to receive information. There's really dumb radios that can just transmit APRS, like what they call trackers. They're basically just broadcasting periodic position reports from a GPS. And for example, you might be using that, say, in like the events they're doing for like the MS-150. That's what they put in the support vehicles, is just a transmit only tracker. No one's watching the APRS in the SAG trucks. They're being watched back in net control.
So if I,
Can make another update of that to get Yaesu Fusion, because all of the Yaesu mobile and HTs all have TNCs and APRS built in. So you could do a twofer. You could be on APRS and Fusion at the same time.
you know, it occurs to me that with the Memorial Day parade coming up, it'd be a great opportunity for those of us who have APRS capable HTs to spend half an hour with the manual and figure out how to set up our HT to do location and put in a little bit of text about the parade. Emergency communication support and parade marshaling for the Wayne Memorial Day Parade, something like that.
That would be interesting for people driving by and say, oh, there's a parade we can go watch. But on the other end, it's not like we have a net control station that's watching, because we know where we are all assigned. That sort of thing works a lot better with the mobile stations, where you don't know where they are. Like, are we going to track our unit in the parade? Are we going to have a unit in the parade this year?
Anyway, I'm just I'm being my usual idea factory. Most of them are pretty damn good, but you know, I'm going to spend some time and try to figure out my APRS setup. I also have 2 other devices. I have this Bionics APRS, and I have this little one it's only 1 watt. It's the same Sonic AP510
Yeah, that is a very convenient, very versatile tracker unit. So you could have that in your back pocket while you're like riding a bicycle in a bike event. You could actually know how fast the bicycles are moving. The biggest problem with APRS is because it is in the amateur radio service. Anyone who's got a transmitting beacon has to be a licensed amateur radio operator. You can't just shove it in some car that some random person is in, because then they would have a radio transmitter that's not being controlled by a licensed ham. Which is why, for example, for the French Creek Iron Tour, we have members of Chester County Aries Races riding in all the sport vehicles to be the licensed ham, and also providing voice backhaul between the SAG and net control, as well as being the operator in charge of the tracker.
dog wants to go out of.
All right, there are other questions. All right, well, if there's no other questions, let's thank Andrew for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. That was great.
All right, yeah, this is great. Yes, I think that brings to a
Okay.
close the May meeting of MARC, unless anyone has anything else for the good of the club.
If anybody wants to go over to 147.36, I'd love to hear you.
Okay.
Don't forget it's in Derby, though. Don't expect too much. I don't expect too much performance-wise at the moment.
I'm there.
Okay.
I'm
All
ready.
right, I'll head over in just a minute as soon as we close everything down. So on behalf of MARC, I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and we will see you soon. We'll have the breakfast on Saturday. We've got the Memorial Day Parade coming up on Monday, and we've got several events in June coming up as well. So we'll see you very soon. 7-3, and we will see you next month.